And wondering what Karis is about. Can you just maybe introduce yourselves real quickly as like what you do there and what Karis is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'm Geri, and I'm one of the executive directors at Karis Support Society. Mm-hmm. At Karis, we have a residential recovery program, and so women can stay up to 2 years, and really a holistic approach to healing and understanding where their traumas came from as part of the process. Like Gabor Mate says that he's never met anyone who was misusing substances that didn't have significant trauma in their life. Doesn't always work the other way. Just because you have had significant trauma doesn't mean you will be a substance user. But the antithesis is always true.
Well, that's a pretty wild statistic.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I think it's a safe place. 2 years gives you time to acknowledge and to move on to the place. I was just thinking about what Anita was saying, and that the making friends, I think you need to also make friends with anger. Because anger is usually the beginning of the process. I know for myself, that's how I first express grief, is I get angry. And, that is when you live in community, like the women at Karis, anger is an escalation, is certainly part of the process. And so anger is a sign of something. It's not an end.
Right.
It's not a...
That's kind of the tip of the ice. It's like what you see of the iceberg, but then what's underneath it. And so you're helping them look at that. Yeah,
hopefully first to accept the anger. And that really comes from our role, even as staff, to go, we get it. We understand why there's a lot of anger. Right?
Of course there's anger.
Living in community, one of the things we talk about is that if you don't feel your feelings, you're going to behave your feelings. Right? So if you're not going to feel your anger, you will behave your anger. And that can be problematic in a community setting, in a family setting.
Sure, yeah.
Right? If I'm in my family setting and I'm behaving my anger, it's not going to work. Right? But if I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
So and I'm one of the directors, and I get to participate in the classroom often, and just a lot of one-on-ones. But Anita has a different role.
Yes. And do you want to say officially what my role is? Because I never know.
This is a trick question.
Yeah, it's a bit of a trick question. Anita has been a spiritual director at Karis for many, many years. And it has moved and changed as Anita has moved and changed.
Like 15 or years or something, right?
Probably longer.
It's going to be 17 years coming up.
Amazing.
Yes. And she has, at one point, she was a house mom in one of our scattered sites, and that moved into more classroom facilitation, and then moved into more of a spiritual direction role.
Yeah.
So the somatic therapy is part of that. That role,
I call it feeling work, because there wasn't such a thing as somatic therapy when I started. I started and I called it feeling work.
Okay.
And so, it was something that I somehow experienced in myself, right? I realized that I had to feel things, and I started to recognize that they were in my body. And so it kind of evolved from my experience. But I had read a book that kind of encouraged me in that direction.
What was that?
And you know what? I can't remember the name of the book
right now. Is that
Brandon?
Brandon
Bayes. Brandon Bayes, yeah.
B-A-Y, I think. Yeah.
And that's how I started. But then and it's developed. So understanding like what the girls' needs are. I've done different kinds of training, and I did, this rapid intertransformational therapy, which I don't recommend because I realize that we want quick fixes, and you can't just deal with all your stuff over a weekend. And so I've learned to be really patient and take it a step at a time with the girls, and because then it gives them courage. And it's really, really hard for them to face what they have to face because they've been running from it for a long time. So I do this piece because it's always around their childhood.
How do you grieve? What's the best way to grieve?
It's different for everybody, right? But obviously grief, there's a lot of sadness involved. There's loss involved, right? So we have to find a way to embrace that loss and to feel that loss and to make friends with that loss, because grieving is actually a sacred act. It's not something to be avoided or pushed away or gotten over quickly. It's sacred. And so we have to treat it that way.
Well, that's a word, like to embrace and feel the loss and make friends with loss.
Yes. Because it's about love. Usually whatever you've lost, it's a loss of love in some way. And it's sacred to embrace that. That's what I see. We've just kind of made an enemy out of grief in a way, and it should be a friend. And it's really an important friend. It's kind of like Inside Out, right? Embracing that sadness, it's just a part of us, and making friends with it. Yeah.
Boy, I love that line. It's really cool that you say that, because just in the last interview episode, that was Brad that talked about that being one of the tools is grieving.
Yes.
Like learning to grieve and reflect on what's happened, on the trauma, the loss, bankruptcy, whatever it is, loss of a person. But I love that line, make friends with grief.
With grief.
That is something that does not appeal to me when I think about friends.
I know.
But I love hearing that.
It's no different than saying make friends with your shame. Because we avoid all of those things, right? We push them away and we treat them like they're an enemy.
Yeah, because it's scary.
I know, it is. And that's why, like with our girls, we can see how important it is to get them to embrace their shame, because it keeps them away from who they are. And that's why they're in addiction. They run and they numb because of all that shame and pain that they carry, right? And so, making friends with your shame gives them the courage to look at what they have to look at.
How do you do that? Like someone coming from nothing, or coming blind, not say emotionally intelligent or aware. How do you, and how have you encouraged the women to make friends with shame and grief? Like what's kind of the first step?
Well, first of all, we acknowledge that. We say that, right? That's really an important aspect. That there's nothing about them. There's no part of them that they should abandon or reject. They need to give it love and attention, because every part of us needs to be seen and heard in some form, right? So they get taught those things in many different forms, like at Karis, but then in counseling, and I do somatic therapy. So to give them courage, you have to get them to start feeling their sensations in their body, but remembering some good things about their life, because they usually come in with a lot of trauma and a lot of struggle. And so you get them to remember something good and feel that good. Then somehow that gives them the courage to take another step within.
Okay.
Do you know, it's interesting, but I've seen the process happen over and over again. So when they remember something good, then all of a sudden they'll go, and wait a minute, now I'm sensing something else. And so you're coaching them to say, like, how old were you there? Like, how old do you think you were? Whatever. It's different for every person. And then, you know, you're coaching them like, let's give this love and attention. You know?
Right.
What's needed right now? What does that little girl need right now?
Yeah.
What's important for her right now?
Right.
You know, what do you think? And what do you sense?
Right.
You know, so you kind of take it step by step.
Okay.
And sometimes if we can just deal with one thing, that's enough, because then it gives them courage for the next round, because it didn't take them out.
Apart from childhood trauma, is there any other thread that you could weave through almost everyone that's come
Yeah,
through?
sometimes it can be the loss of a significant person's, you know, maybe later. I can think of one individual who was, I believe, 12 when she lost her mom. And that set off, you know, a series of traumatic events.
Okay.
So it wasn't something that started, you know, really young with her. Sometimes it has been a car accident that has debilitated somebody, and you know, maybe it even starts with prescription medications as well, right? But there is something that sets an individual up for needing that numbing.
Okay.
And so it can start in different places, but you don't always know, like, does somebody take trauma and experiences it in a realm that really needs to be numbed, and another person walks through it.
Right.
And yet I think that whatever trauma there is, it catches up with us. So we may not deal with it, you know, earlier, but it catches up with us later in some form. And so whatever it is that we haven't allowed will rise up in some way. And you'll see a lot of seniors even that they're starting to have to deal with things or avoiding things, but you can see that it's happening in them, a lot of struggles. So I think that as human beings, it's going to catch up somewhere.
Right.
And I know that working with the girls, because most of the time I'm doing inner child work, just about the majority is inner child work.
Wow.
And young, like 12 years old is young too, but most of them have had, their needs were not met when they were young, and a lot of them have gone through different kinds of abuse, etc. So one of the pieces that I put into my work is nurturing. And so I've been given permission as the grandma of the place to do that. And I nurture them because I'm dealing with their children, the child within them, right? And so I always do a nurturing piece, and most of them fall asleep when I do that piece. And so I find that, you know, and I talk to them like in a way that, you know, a child needs to be spoken to, like you don't talk baby talk. It's just that it's like you're talking to a child.
Right.
And bringing them comfort and assurance that they matter and that they have value. So it's like that's a really important part of my work.
Man. I love that. It's so cool. It reminds you just mentioned Gabor Mate, legendary stuff. And I just heard something recently, it was a couple weeks ago. He was talking about depression and how he says, you know, a lot of doctors, if you go to a doctor with, hey, I'm suffering from depression, they'll give you some medication. He said there's another piece to it, is even just the word depression is depressing your emotions. So it's like, how do you, I mean, to your point, what we were talking about, making friends with those emotions, the anger or the grief or whatever you're feeling, like to make friends with that and unpress that, you know, to release that.
It's really that the phrase, if you don't feel your feelings, you will behave them, right?
Yeah.
And so depression is part of that. If I am not feeling the grief or the fear that I need to feel, depression is one of the ways I may end up behaving it.
So with all the, I mean, is it probably hundreds, if not thousands, hundreds of women that have come through.
Yes.
What's the hardest lesson you've had to learn about doing the work that you've done?
I think for me, it was embracing all the suffering
As
that they've
opposed to,
experienced.
as opposed to,
Well, like I try to avoid suffering. And when I went into this work, I needed to embrace the suffering. That was the hardest thing for me because I would rather go and do something happy and something nice, something fun,
that sounds,
right?
Yep.
And so, and in the Enneagram, I am a need to avoid pain. So one thing that I've been invited to do is to embrace the pain. And it's been a really powerful exercise for myself
Okay.
and to help the others with it. But it goes against my grain.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. This part of you is
Yeah.
like, no, don't want that.
Yeah.
But then there's this knowing that I know that if I
know.
make friends with this little puppy,
I know.
I can.
So that's what's helped me, and it's brought me a lot of depth and even some joy, because I feel joyful when I've finished my work with the girls. Lots of times they'll come in and tell Geri, like, I'm so excited because, you know, we've embraced something,
right,
and embraced some of their pain and brought some comfort to them. I just end up loving it. So yeah, it brings me joy.
Yeah, and I think for me, who I am more goal orientated than the need for success. And that doesn't happen in this context. The goals. I think that, you know, if I did this and then I did this and then I did that, then that's going to happen.
Oh, like an equation, like a nice, neat, tidy little.
I like equations.
Equations, yeah.
And it doesn't work when we're talking about pain and loss. It doesn't work at all. And so that's been hard and good to be able to just release that and go, this is about a connection and a relationship. It isn't about a goal that I might think somebody should have. And also that it's facing my own triggers has been really hard, especially when I think I started in the work was, and then it becomes really beautiful because you realize we're all the same. But initially you're coming from a position of power and belief that you have something to offer somebody else, that somehow we're not the same. And then the horrible, beautiful realization that we all are, and that we all have trauma and that we all have losses. And I wasn't any better than anybody at facing my losses. So I think that was really an important, beautiful, hard lesson.
Hard lesson, yeah.
Yeah, that changes you. Like it really deeply changes you and you become a different person. I think when you are with like people who make a decision to spend this season of their life to open up and change is just so incredibly brave.
Yeah.
And so then to be and sit with these individuals who are brave every single day is amazing.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to face, you know, maybe my car doesn't work or something in the morning and I don't want to face that. I mean, it's silly, right?
Yeah, what a different perspective. This is another kind of theme that we're finding in this, how to help people get unstuck and find hope, is to be able to get into a different perspective on yourself, like what you were just talking about, right? If I can see myself as just like anyone else. I remember someone in the recovery world kind of saying something that hit me, this is years ago. They're like, yeah, of course, I would be in exactly the same spot, like legit. If I had their upbringing, their set of tools or non-set of tools or friends or whatever, and obviously there's choices that you make, but yeah, if you're, of course, I'd be on the street too, or I'd be in recovery, or I'd be.
Absolutely.
And we all are in some form.
Yes, we're all.
Right?
Yeah, that's true.
We
We're
all
all.
are.
Everyone has addictions. It's just that some are unmanageable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the with a lot of in the recovery world, I'm always curious about what have you found has been the most important key for the women to stay in recovery, to stay clean or sober, or to be kind of keep the healthy trajectory? Like if we were to gather all of them in one room and look at what is that thread that those women who have, who are now healthier or have stayed whatever in sobriety or whatever, what do you see as the key there?
Probably moving away from being the victim. And the reality is everybody that has been through the program has been a victim. And yet to move past that in belief systems, I think is really, really important.
How? What's the first?
You have to embrace that first.
Okay, so we're coming back to this.
You have to embrace your
Making buddies.
victimhood, making buddies with it, because there's a reason. There's a reason that you're a victim, so you have to make friends with it. And so the girls, once they start to understand that we're not doing this in any way, shape, or form. So that kind of was how I motivated myself, was this. I would give myself the finger and get your big girl panties on and just get with the program and just, do this. And so that doesn't work. And it doesn't work for me and it doesn't work for them, but that's what they're used to.
Right.
Right?
It sounds like a lot of shame. Like
Lots of shame.
We're being should on as.
Oh, totally. And so that's what they experience. And so, just getting them to become aware, self-aware, and embrace whatever comes. Instead of, saying, well, I'm going to allow this and I'm not going to allow that.
Well, and you just said getting rid of the shoulds. Really, we can live our life without I should and I have to. And that is we have many conversations in the classroom because I love talking about it. Is that you don't have to do anything. You get to, but you don't have to.
It's an invitation.
There's an invitation.
Yeah.
So
I love that word.
As long as any of us, I think, are living in the I have to's, whether that's the first thing in the morning, I have to, it holds us in that place of being a victim because we're subject to somebody else's choices, somebody else's agenda. So can I live with an I choose to and I get to? And I think we can. I think every single decision. And so as somebody who's walking through recovery, I have to change this or I get to change this. I have to face my grief, have to embrace my grief, or I get to embrace my grief.
Right.
Really, like I think it can, there isn't any element in life where we don't get to make a choice.
Most of them are resistant to any kind of authority structure. And so, we don't come across that way because Karis means grace.
Oh, it does. Okay.
Yeah, and we give a lot of grace there, which I love this community that we're a part of because we do give a lot of grace. And it starts to be felt by the women because they're not used to having grace. They're used to a lot of judgment.
Okay.
So we give them a sense of value and worth just by the holistic program that we offer.
Oh, I love that.
And that is kind of our value system, right? Is grace. And so
Grace and boundaries, of course, because they go together always. They do. In my personal life, they go together.
And if they don't have boundaries, they feel insecure.
Yes.
Yeah, because that must be a tricky one because it's like you want to have grace or be kind or nice. Hey, of course you're feeling that way. Of course you're angry. Okay, let's talk about let's tease it out. And you're not free to just do or say whatever you want.
And class starts at 9 a.m.
Right, yeah, okay.
And
So
you're
there's
also
going
to
that
be
combo.
in class at 9.
Yeah, I love that 1-2 punch.
That's something we talk about is I love the laws principle. Have you heard about that?
No.
Love, laws. So I can drive through a school zone and I can be thinking about the children that might be crossing the road, and out of that empathetic place, I drive 30 kilometers an hour.
Sure.
If that's not my driving motive in that moment, then the speed sign says 30 kilometers. So that's the law. So I drive 30. If I choose not to follow the law, then I move into loss, because maybe now there's a ticket and I have to pay some money, and so there's a law. So really, life can be lived in a love, law, loss. So we talk about that at Karis. Are you going to show up at class at 9 because Anita's going to be doing her work there, and there's this enjoyment, and because of the work, you love doing this work, but we all know that that's not always our driving force. And so then you hit the boundaries. Class starts at 9. Right. And so it'd be great to say we all live our life doing love, but it's not realistic. So law and loss also can happen.
Yeah. Kind of, you mentioned something, Anita, in the beginning, talking about when you help, when you're helping the ladies get make friends with their anger, with their grief, recognizing it, but just looking at it, like there's this, but also helping them understand some of their helping. What does it feel like to be strong, to be confident, to feel like you're worthy? Like, what does that?
To move away from the victimhood.
Right. So from victimhood into I'm actually worthy, and maybe if that's just a sliver, just a tiny peek through the window, that gives some hope. It sounds like, right? It's like that's like this little drop, there's a light at the end of the tunnel here.
There's power in it, right? Like personal power. Not dominating, not manipulation, but an actual inner power that says, I can move forward, I can make changes.
Oh, I love that so much. What would you say, let's just say someone's watching this and they're not in recovery, but want recovery, or at least part of them does, wants to be free, hates the pain that they feel, hates the trauma that they've experienced, isn't in a very comforting, encouraging environment. Maybe they're surrounded by addiction or unhealthy people. What would you want to say to that person?
Really important to accept your situation for what it is. Like, just actually accept it, so that then you can have wisdom to know what to do. Because sometimes people need support. They need a therapist. They need a life coach. They need something to help them make that next step. But also, it's kind of like acknowledging the fact that you have these struggles and that you are going to set your intention to give them attention. You're going to look at them. You're going to start to try to make friends with the different parts of yourself. I know that one of my ahas was that I didn't know what love was at all until I loved my dark, until I loved my shadow. Because that's what love is like. It loves the shadow, it loves the struggle, it loves every aspect of us that we many times deny. So, it's that place of just starting that journey and saying, I want to try to accept myself for who I am and embrace what I normally reject, and just even beginning to say that to yourself.
I think it's hard to do that without a therapeutic community around you of some sort.
Yeah. Because we need support.
Yeah. If I am learning to embrace my grief or learning to embrace my anger, the person next to me, if they're not wanting to also then embrace my grief and my anger, or their own, which would go hand in hand, it's hard. It's hard to do it alone.
Yeah.
And so often we need to if not moving into a therapeutic community, at least removing ourselves from the community that we're in, which is really hard. I mean, everything from the practicalities of finances and possibilities, and where it's hard to do it alone, though.
One of the things that the girls find out is, because I do spiritual direction, is that, we talk about a higher power and that they're not alone, that there's something greater that is at work, and they all have that. So they carry an empowering place. They feel disempowered, but at the same time, they have an empowering place within themselves. And so it's there for everyone. And so our girls come from many different backgrounds, all sorts of them, and like very varied. And so we meet them there. And just they start to understand that there is something greater at work. And they start to experience synchronicities like crazy because they start to recognize this and involve this. And so like some of them will meditate, some of them will pray. They have different forms of doing that, but it starts to become a part of their everyday life. And it's very helpful for them. And that's why I really love that model, to recognize there's something greater at work on our behalf. Because so many of them have felt so alone and they don't trust anyone. And so now some of them can't trust a higher power initially because of what they've experienced, like in different frameworks, but some of them haven't had any of that. And then they start to trust easier. It's like it's helpful for them. The others, we have to work through some stuff before they actually believe that there's a higher power that actually will benefit them in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, it's just beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful to hear some of these kind of tools and tricks to becoming free, to turning towards hope. What a sweet phrase that's going to stick with me for a while. This whole like being friends with or being buddies with.
Yes.
That seems to be a theme like we've been talking about for the last however long on the couch here.
There was a phrase that I don't know where you got it from. You wrote it on a note and gave it to me the other day.
Right. And
it's tough because Anita does that. Shows up with a note, puts it on my desk because she thinks I need it that day, which is probably true.
I think we have to accept the fact that we can't change our past.
So the phrase was, forgiveness is
forgiveness is accepting the fact that you can't change your past.
Think about that.
Yeah, that's a good one. That Gabor Mate talks about that too with trauma. How it's what has been done. It's a wound, and go ahead.
So one of the phrases I have is "Don't waste your trauma." That's why we embrace our trauma, because it's going to take you places that you never thought you would go, because it's going to help you move in your life. And it's so important to make friends with your trauma, right? And so, it's like all the things that we reject and we push away are actually, if we embrace them and make friends with them, they help us and they move us forward into something really what we're meant to do, right? So I always tell the girls that, what you think was meant to harm you actually can be turned around for good.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so hard to embrace it, though, hey?
I
It
know.
sounds so great. And I love that it's like an equation that has worked. This is what we're talking about.
Totally.
This is a theme, is those who embrace their stuff, embrace the anger, the trauma, the whatever they're feeling, the feelings, those are the people that actually are able to turn towards hope or stay hopeful.
Well, I really believe in the power of compassion. We learn to give ourselves compassion. I always say compassion means come to love. Just come to love. And so when you believe that we're all worthy of that, I think that's just such an important piece.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
We were talking about earlier before we had hit record, but we were talking a little bit about the IFS, the internal family systems, the parts work, and Dr. Richard Schwartz. And I was saying how that's been a major healing piece for me in the last
Well,
in the
no
last
bad
few
parts.
months.
How is that true?
Yeah.
Is it really true?
Well,
Right? That's the title of his book.
Yeah,
No bad
exactly.
parts.
Yeah,
I really,
Like to
I don't
have
have any.
compassion.
Like
Yeah.
I don't have any bad parts.
What a thought. That's a compassionate thought, to use your
yeah.
word, right? Is to have compassion on even the parts that we're ashamed of, or instead
Yeah.
of judgment, it's compassion.
I know.
Well, and if connection truly is the opposite
Of addiction.
of addiction, then if I am seeing you as having good parts and bad parts, how am I going to connect with your bad parts? I will resist them. But if I am not judging your parts, then I can find a way to connect with you.
Yeah.
The girls will, when you understand the parts, because we all have these different aspects in ourselves that try to protect us, right? So when I'm doing somatic therapy with the girls, there's all their protectors that come up. And so I acknowledge that. And so one girl says, I'm not looking at her, she's a bitch, and this is her child she's talking about, right? And so I'll say, you know what? Let's just ask who has tried to help you, to survive what you've had to survive.
Right.
But let's just ask her to take a break. Because right now, we just need a break from bitch, and we're just going to look at something else here, okay? So do you think she could take a break right now? Do you think she could just have a reprieve so that we can actually look at what's really going on here?
Wow.
And they can feel that, they can acknowledge that, and they kind of give her permission to leave,
man.
right? So that's working with parts, right? Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much. It's like, and I love hearing you talk about it because it feels almost like magic, right? Like to help somebody turn towards hope.
Yeah.
And there's this like invitation, right? I mean, this is what you're doing is.
So there's the aspect of, the inner child work where you finally get to the point where, because you visit your inner child, right? And you go to her and you visit her. But then all of a sudden, you can get to the point where you go, let's take her with you. Let's just take her with you. That's integration. So it's just the way that it works. Yeah.
This is just so beautiful. I'm so for what you are about with Karis, and I've known you for quite a few years in different areas, and but I've always been so impressed with how honest you are about what's happening, and there's some rough days, right? There's some like days where it's or maybe weeks where it's like, whoa, there's a lot of chaos happening, people coming and going, stuff being said, and how do you deal?
You have been there on some, right?
yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, I remember one of the programs just recently. One of the babies had died.
Yeah.
Right, like the day before, and so it's like, okay, well, how do we navigate this? How do we show grace and compassion and what But I just admire both of you so much, and the work of Karis and all the staff. Like it's just what a beautiful thing to, be a little bit a part of, and I really respect what you're doing.
Well, I know Geri and I both say that it's been our saving grace in our own lives because it challenges us to keep growing and learning. And so we just constantly keep growing and learning. And we've evolved a lot since we started.
Sure have.
I know. And so what a privilege, because
it's beautiful.
it works both ways, right? I always tell the girls, I'm so grateful for you. You help me learn and grow all the time. So,
what a perspective. I got one last little fun question that I love asking is, if you were to be in a room with everyone that you've ever met in your life, who would you gravitate towards and why? Yeah.
I can think of one individual, and there wasn't opportunity to bring reconciliation with that individual, and I would move towards reconciliation.
Oh, wow.
Because I lost the opportunity.
Okay.
That was the first person that
Yeah.
came to my mind.
Thanks for the honesty. I love it. Yeah.
When what comes to mind is it's people, but when my husband was passing away, we were down in Mexico getting treatments for him, hopefully because they couldn't do anything for his cancer. And so we were asked to minister to all of the people because everybody congregated together that were dying. And so we all stayed in one place and everybody was going to Mexico for treatments. And so they asked Les and I to do the ministry for all of these people. And it was so powerful. It was the most authentic time that I've ever had in my life. And that's when people are so real. And so I gravitate to that because many times, you know, back then I could be not always authentic. You're always playing a role or playing a game or something. It was just so honest and so real. And I loved it.
Oh, I love that.
It was hard, but I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate that honesty so much. And I mean, you both just ooze integrity and love. It's just beautiful to see. And the ladies at Karis are so lucky to have both of you a part of like showing that kind of love. It just moves me. And so thank you for doing what you're doing and being, you know, it's obviously not just a job here where you're doing your, you know, you're not filling a timesheet. It's like this takes some, this takes personal,
it takes a lot of personal work.
So that's
We don't do this for the money.
nonprofit. Oh, that's so great. Well, people can find you. Just clean myself up here. People can find more about Karis at Karis. Well, we'll throw it in the captions or whatever. Karis supports. Right. Yep. So thank you, Anita and Geri, for sharing
and thank you, Nico, for becoming part of
Yes.
Karis.
Yes.
What a great journey from being the original tech person.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Helping us with our sound system, which sometimes we still need your help with that, because it is a very confusing sound system for us.
I know.
But you're coming in and teaching and coaching, and the women feel so incredibly safe.
Yes,
and
they do.
It's always one of our hopes that we can find men in the community who are safe and who are vulnerable and authentic, because that hasn't necessarily been their experience. Anybody, men and like
Absolutely.
everybody, but also thank you for being one of those people in our
I love working with you. You're such a beautiful soul. And I just feel that connection every time he comes. It's just like, yay.
Oh yeah.
Coming. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so exciting. Oh, I love being a part of it.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Yeah.
inviting me.